reaction that's been coming from the GOP. Senator Ted Cruz actually called it some of the darkest hours, the darkest 24 hours in our nation's history. He's also calling for Supreme Court elections. In terms of the reaction from your party, has there been some overreaction to this at all?
Well, I was disappointed in the decision. I felt like it was overreach. You know, my faith informs my traditional view of marriage, but it also tells me that we ought to treat everybody with dignity and respect. I disagree with the decision. I think some of the rhetoric has been a little bit overheated. Clearly, this is the law of the land. We're going to have to respond to the law of the land. I'm confident here in Indiana, though, that we're going to get it right. We're going to come together as a community.
Are the culture wars, are they over more or less with this decision? Does your party need to look at some of these issues differently, do you think?
Well, I don't think they're over. I mean, what I believe is that we need to stand up for religious liberty, and we also need to stop discrimination. That'll be the compass that guides me as we move forward. We're just a few days away from a very big decision that's obviously historic in nature. I'm confident over time the temperatures are going to calm down here, and again, I think we'll come together as a community. I'm particularly confident that will happen in Indiana.
I know you and I have talked a lot about health care in the past. What's next on this issue? Is this something you'll continue to try and change in Congress? And at what point does that fight finally end?
Yeah, I mean, another disappointing decision by the Supreme Court. They ignored the clear wording of the law, the clear intent of the law, I believe. You know, whatever the Supreme Court's ruling, it can't change the fact that the law is unpopular, that Obamacare is still hurting millions of Americans, that tens of millions of Americans can't afford the deductibles and their policies that have happened now. I think what Republicans have to do, though, from here forward is we're going to have to present our own plan. I think a plan that's rooted in tax credits, not subsidies, a plan that looks at common sense reforms like in Indiana, like medical malpractice reform, competition, which would allow costs to go down as you had greater competition, and then use medical savings accounts. But we're going to have to put forward a proposal. It's not going to be good enough to just criticize the law.
Okay, I also want to ask you about another issue that was in the news in the past week, but really got overshadowed because of the decisions in the Supreme Court, the trade talks in Congress. This was something you supported. Tell me why. I did.
I supported it. Obviously, a huge victory for the president as well. You know, from my perspective, I'm a conservative who supports free trade because I believe that trade creates jobs and opportunities. And I see that particularly in my district where we have manufacturing plants all over the district, agricultural industry, the farmers that sell soybeans and corn all over the world. To do that, we need trade agreements. Our real problem is the countries where we don't have trade agreements. Where we don't have a trade agreement, we have a $500 billion trade deficit. With the countries we do have trade agreements, we have a $50 billion trade surplus. What the TPA does is just make sure that the president has the authority to go negotiate a free trade agreement.
Some people have expressed concern about this, though, and said that this is going to give way too much power to big business internationally around the world, that businesses are truly going to be running the world after deals like this go through. Is that the case?
Well, the deal, when it's negotiated, the TPP, which is coming next, will set in public for 60 days because of the law we just passed before it's voted upon. So if that's true, if there's bad provisions in the law, the American people are going to have 60 days, really unprecedented, to see the law. I think beyond that, as much as we'd like to harken back to a day of the past, draw up the drawbridges and try to ignore the rest of the world, the reality is the global economy is happening. And we can either go compete in that global economy or we can let China and others lead the world. I think we need to lead. America's always done that. And frankly, when the American worker gets a fair chance on a level playing field, we win. And that's what I hope these trade agreements will do for us.
Speaking of the world, international affairs, national security, obviously a big topic this week. Some of this will be airing over the 4th of July weekend, and obviously there are some terror threats that have been in the news for the holiday weekend. How seriously are you taking these, and are we doing enough to prevent incidents like this?
I think we all need to take it very seriously. ISIS is a declared enemy of America. We've seen this problem over a period of months and now going on years. We had the recent strike, a strike in 3 different continents, essentially on the same day. What I want to see the president do is call this nation to the true breadth and depth of this challenge. These Islamic extremists need to be defeated, and we need the president to help lead us and bring us together to make sure that happens.
This is a hard battle to fight, though, is it not? Because this isn't a state-led terror operation. This isn't a country you're going to war against. It's a philosophy, and it's a group of terrorists that are in many different countries.
Yeah, that's right. It's not a traditional kind of nation-on-nation war. You won't have battlefields like you saw in World War I or even World War II. It's a battle of ideologies. I think the closer analogy, frankly, is to the Cold War, where we had to stand up to communism, two very different ideologies, two sides that wanted to defeat each other. The good guys won in the Cold War. America defeated communism. I believe we can do that with terrorism as well. But to defeat terrorism, we're going to have to call it what it is, which is Islamic extremism, and we need to put the resources it takes in play to make sure these folks are defeated.
How serious is this specific threat, do you think, from what you're hearing for this?
Well, I think everyone should be vigilant over the 4th of July weekend. Of course, terrorism's about trying to create fear, and I think what we have to do as Americans is stand up to that and go about our daily business. But while you're going about that business, while you're celebrating our nation's birthday and having time with friends and family, just be vigilant as you're going about your business.
Looking more and more like perhaps one of your colleagues in the House, Todd Young, may run for the U.S. Senate. Do you think he'd be a good candidate?
Todd would be a great candidate. We've got several people who are looking at running that would be great candidates as well. I think I set a land speed record in declaring I was out of the race. It took me less than 15 minutes. We're very happy where we are, but I wish everybody who's running, I wish them well.
Anyone you're supporting at this point? Too early?
It's too early, but several really good people. Yeah. Todd Young will be a strong candidate.
All right. Congressman Luke Messer, thanks so much for being with us. We appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot.
Take care.
All right, much more to come this morning. Governor Pence, you see here, busy talking with people affected by flooding in northern Indiana, but he's also been busy on the campaign trail. We'll talk about the big fundraising deadline that just passed and how much money